Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Tony Horton. For years, I struggled to find the clarity of purpose in my life and the single-minded focus that I had when I was an athlete. You know, it just felt like I was working hard, but not really getting any closer to where I wanted to go. And to be honest, I really didn't even know or have a clear vision on where I wanted to go. Then I discovered a powerful 4-step blueprint that I began to apply to my life, and it changed everything. Now, every morning, I'm excited to attack the day because I have a clarity of purpose and I have confidence in my plan and I have peace of mind in knowing that I'm back on that path to elite success. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can use this 4-step process to recreate the key elements in the life of an elite performer so you can regain that clarity of purpose and that single-minded focus so that you can both achieve your goals and live a balanced life. I created a free PDF for you outlining the 4-step Reveal Your Path Blueprint for Success. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/blueprint. That's jimharshawjr.com/blueprint to get instant access to that free PDF. Tony is the wildly popular creator of the best-selling fitness series P90X and most recently 22-Minute Hardcore. Tony is a world-class motivational speaker, personal development coach, and author. Need I say more? He's a household name. As usual, if you don't have time to listen to this entire episode, or if you hear something you like, but you just don't have time to write it down, make sure you grab your free copy of the action plan from this episode, as well as all of the other episodes. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. That's jimharshawjr.com/action. Tony, welcome to the show.
Jim, how are you, my friend? I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, I am fantastic, and I'm excited to have you on. Like I said, you're for the most part a household name. You know, anybody that knows, you know, has ever sort of stepped foot into the fitness industry knows knows P90X, knows your name, and all the great things that you've done. So this is going to be a great interview because I know some of your backstory, and I really want to share that with the listener, and because it's incredible. You know, you're like I said, you're one of the biggest names in the fitness industry. You created P90X and some other programs, and you got your newer program out here, 22-Minute Hardcore. But at one point in your life, you were a self-described 98-pound weakling, and you've said, and I quote, and I found this on Google, so it must be true. So he said, I was broke, out of shape, and in a bad way, and I was often depressed, overwhelmed, and underproductive. How do you go, Tony, from that to this massive brand and household name that you are now?
Well, you know, when I was a wee lad growing up, I was an Army brat. We moved a lot as a kid. I moved 6 times before 5th grade. You know, so part of my issues were, you know, and I think anybody that grows up in a family that's like mildly dysfunctional for a lot of different reasons, you know, maybe there's alcoholism in the family, or you're moving around, or there's, you know, who knows what it is. And I was a kid, you know, who born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s, moved around a lot. I was a small kid. I wasn't an athletic kid. You know, my father was a great athlete. You know, his father really pushed him, but my father hated the process at getting better, because, you know, you're either a winner or a loser. You know, we've kind of pushed back on that a little bit, you know, and as we've learned that, you know, it's not one or the other. It's not those great extremes. And, you know, you talk about that in your philosophy about failure, you know, and so, you know, failure was the absolute worst thing you could do. But in reality, it's just, you know, to me, failure is another word for awesome, because it gives you the opportunity to see what went wrong and to move forward and make adjustments. But I didn't know any of that as a kid, you know, so I just suffered. I suffered greatly. I dealt with, you know, long lengths of depression and anxiety and frustration. And I was made fun of because I had this speech impediment called cluttering. So it wasn't really stammering or stuttering. It was just this inability to be able to stream a sentence together at a pace that was slow and precise and articulate. It was, it was devastating. And I inherited it from my father, and my father inherited it from my grandfather. It was genetically passed down. And, you just assume as a kid that, well, everybody else has got it and I've got it. And so I don't know what I have to do about it. And I was just in a panic all the time, and then with some personal development, a lot of things changed. It was that for me. When I finally, was in college, I started reading Andrew Weil, Andrew Weil. And Looking Out for Number One was the first personal development book I ever read. And it just gave me the information that was so foreign yet so awesome, because there was nothing like it for me in my life. And it wasn't about being selfish. It was really about figuring out ways to get your act together so that you could be more selfless, so you could spend less time on personally developing yourself and begin to find a career and a purpose so that you were making a difference in the world. What? That's cool. Let me pursue that. And so, then if you look at my library, there's a lot of mountaineering books and different kinds of things that sort of entertain me, some novels and whatnot. But it was Richard Bach and Richard Carlson and Gary Zukav and Deepak Chopra and Andrew Weil and Tony Robbins, and the list goes on and on and on. And these themes kept popping up, and each one of them had their own take. The Dalai Lama had a take, and Tony Robbins had a completely different one. But there were a lot of these universal themes that popped up for me. And I never had that in high school or college. I think if there was an actual personal development course that you could take in high school, think of all the kids that could avoid the trials and tribulations of stumbling all over themselves for decades.
Yeah, amen to that.
That silliness, So that was it for me. And it didn't happen overnight. We're talking decades and decades of sort of, banging your head against the wall and opening up doors that were scary and going through and being less concerned with the outcome, enjoying the journey more, learning to be more present, being okay with falling down and understanding like, oh, wow, that didn't work out, instead of being petrified and overwhelmed by it, going, yes, I know there's a lesson in here. Let's keep moving forward. So that's, who I've become. And that's, when you look at my course with Brennan Bouchard, or you look at my book, The Big Picture, which is a personal development type book, not a health and wellness book, is so much, is that it's really my journey. And if a C-minus student with a speech impediment called cluttering can make their way, then just about anybody can.
So how did that speech impediment affect your confidence when you were young? And how did you sort of, you talk to people and especially therapists and counselors, and my wife is a licensed therapist, so I know this too. These sort of formative years, you form this image of yourself. And how did you deal with something that was a speech impediment that would certainly affect your confidence? If nowhere else, certainly in front of a camera, and you've been in front of a camera for thousands of hours throughout your entire career. How did you make that shift? What happened? What was it? The personal development books? How did that shift happen for you?
Well, that is 180 degrees when you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable in front of 30,000 people or in front of 8 cameras on a set than I am, just hanging out with pals sometimes. And that just comes with practice, the more you do, the better you get, no matter what it is. And so there has to be this sort of deep, profound desire to no longer want to suffer. And so instead of bitching, whining, complaining about it, which, or going into a shell or living a smaller life or whatever it is, instead of doing that, you have to at some point, I think, make some bold decisions and be okay with some subpar outcomes throughout the course of the journey. And I use subpar as an alternative to failure, right? Because it always is, I'll go into the gym and I'll work out, and some days I'm a beast and other days I'm a kitten. I don't know. I can't really, is it biorhythms? Is it lack of sleep? Was it too much stress? Is it dehydration? Is it sleep deprivation? It's any number of things that are occurring on a day-to-day basis that don't allow every day to be this preconceived perfect day, So
Tony Horton has bad days.
I have days where I'm tired and I'm not in the mood and I don't feel like being chatty and I don't feel like, I have an event tomorrow. I got to get up at the crack of dawn It's an event where I'm volunteering. I don't get paid a penny, but it's going to consume most of the day. And I decided to do it because it's the right thing to do, but it's not necessarily the thing that I'd want to do. And so there's that little battle inside of my head that says, geez, dude, you could have blown that off and had, just had a nice relaxing Friday. But there's that voice that says, well, if I say no, what do I get? I get nothing. What are the first two letters of nothing? No. So that alone just says, just go. And then when I come home, I'm going to, I'll turn to my wife and go, oh my God, it was awesome. And that usually happens 95% of the time. But yeah, I'm a lazy kid. I mean, my speech impediment in that period of my life, at that time forced me to be very inactive. I wasn't athletic. I didn't socialize. I was sort of a shy kid. I had a small group of friends that were, we were all kind of wayward kids, and we hung out together and didn't really, we were just, nobody special at school. Things changed in high school. I think my crew in high school were a little bit more interesting, a little bit more active. And so I kind of fell into a really good group that began to give me some self-confidence and help me deal with my speech issues. And for me, it was taking an acting class, and that really helped. I always wanted to be a performer. I became a mime because it was a form of performing without having to say anything. You know what I mean? So it was in there, wow. The DNA was set up so that there was somehow that I needed to have an impact with large groups of people. So I picked mime, and I would crank up ELO or Beatles music or some acid jazz just to kind of fill the room with some noise while I got up there and did some X-rated mime, So that's the kind of start that I had. I was a go-go dancer at a club in the 80s. Because I could dance. I physical movement, not through exercise or through sports, but physical movement through mime or dance or, in the 70s we were popping and locking, and I was a white dude who could do that. So, it was just a way to express myself. And so these were my early fits and starts at trying to make a difference or at least pursue something that wasn't a guy, getting in traffic and working in a cubicle all day in front of a laptop. That was never going to be me. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but it gives you a greater sense of my journey.
Sure. And I feel like anybody listening to this podcast feels like there's some additional, there's another level for them. There's another layer, another level of greatness that they can achieve. But, you were in a situation where this was just in your DNA. Part of this was this, you talked about performance, you talked about motion and movement, and this was just wired into you. But you had probably the single biggest, impediment, no pun intended, to that success. That biggest obstacle was your speech impediment. And so what do you tell the person who's listening, who feels they're like you, they have this DNA of success, this next level that they want to get to, and maybe they're already successful in the sort of broader sense of the term. Maybe they're making enough money or whatnot, but they know there's more. They know there's greatness inside of them, but they have this obstacle, and maybe this obstacle is external. Maybe they don't have enough money or the right education or maybe it's internal, this self-doubt. How does somebody move past that to get to the next level that they know and feel like is inside of them?
Well, I love that you brought up internal and external forces. I talk about that in my book, The Big Picture, and usually people accomplish things if there's a couple things that need to be in play. I have a dear friend of mine who I just love and adore, but he struggles a lot because he assumes that he can solve everything on his own. He doesn't work for a big company, but he's very creative and very smart. But, he doesn't reach out to other people to sort of help him fulfill his tasks and his goals. And so, I'll have a conversation with him, like I'm saying to a lot of the people who are listening in. You got to surround yourself with the killer tribe, people who are just charging, living large, taking control, finishing projects, who don't see obstacles, and so, and sometimes they're not in your life. They're not your coworkers. They're not your family. They're not, anybody from school or around you. And so then you gotta make a decision. What is the thing that you really love? What is it you really want to do? Know that it's not going to happen overnight, and then go search for people who are at least looking to live a bigger life. And so maybe they're at the rock climbing gym. Maybe they're in the Italian class. Maybe they're part of the bike club. Maybe they're, maybe they're at your local church or community organizing group, or maybe there's a young Republicans or Democrats group that, you just got to go pick up the phone or get online and look around. I mean, the fact that we have the world at our fingertips is an excuse killer. You don't have to ask what kind of do I need a gangler wrench for the plumbing? No, you just go online and check it out. It's already there.
Yeah.
So there's going to be internal and external forces, but the goal is to try to have as much energy and enthusiasm to be consistent over time. And so, I'm a health and wellness guy, right? I'm a fitness and nutrition guy. So my salvation was exercise and eating better. And there's a healthcare crisis, right? So that means the vast majority of people in this country are not doing those two things on a regular basis. And so it's easy to see why we're not as productive as we could be. We're not as happy as we could be. We're not as successful as we can be because we're overweight and we're overwhelmed. And we're filling our body with the types of foods that don't have enough nutrients to feed the mind's ability to solve problems and to be consistent and to pursue our life dreams. You just can't. It's just, if you're eating Doritos and Red Bull for lunch, you're screwed. If you're getting up in the morning and eating 3 bowls of sugary cereal or pancakes or waffles, which have the same basic ingredients as cupcakes, there's no surprise that you can't figure stuff out, that you just feel tired and overwhelmed and that you're unproductive. So, the external forces you can't control, but the internal ones you can. And so that is what you eat and how you move, because that's going to stimulate the temporal lobe, the hippocampus, something called the dentate gyrus inside of the temporal lobe, which releases norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, brain-derived neurotropic factor. Like, this is the giddy up and get going, miracle grow for brain activity. And so when you know that, when you believe that, when you have faith in that, when you exercise in such a way that is less about your aesthetic appearance, less about your reflection in the mirror, less about people's opinions about your dress size, and more about your giddy up and go for the course of the day, then you'll probably exercise more often and eat more often. I don't care whether you're paleo or vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian or whatever kind of a food plan that you have. But if you're eating like your great-great-great-grandparents used to eat, then chances are you're going to be slim and trim and have the energy and enthusiasm to kind of get after life. Now, as a wrestler, you know what it was like after a wrestling match, man. You just felt like, boom, whether you won or lost,
sure.
at least, obviously you had some great success in that area. And I think a lot of those early days, as a person who moved physically, is probably the reason why you're a successful man now. Those two things have everything in common. People don't assume that exercising and eating right has anything to do with their level of success and productivity, but they're directly related. And so for me, I'm a C- student. I didn't even graduate from the University of Rhode Island. I'm still 6 credits short, but I've written 3 books. I've sold $1 billion worth of fitness programs. I have a personal development course with Brendan Bouchard. I have my own hair care and skincare line. I have a new TV series coming out. So I'm a busy, very productive. I have the greatest wife in the world who I love madly. I couldn't be more blessed. And, I just pinch myself and go, whose life is this anyway? And it comes from the fact that I have certain disciplines in certain areas, and the foundation is eating right and exercising all the time, period.
Incredible. I mean, you've taken incredible action to get to where you've been, you're through diet and fitness and taking action and reading books and talking to people and bringing the right people into your life. And I mean, you started, were you very clear in the beginning? Like, did you have clear goals? Did you kind of know where you're going or know where you wanted to go? Because you went from teaching lessons out of your garage for $20 to building up a clientele that includes, if I'm not mistaken, like Bruce Springsteen and Usher and Tom Petty, Billy Idol, Annie Lennox, like this A-list. Like, were you clear on that path, or were you just taking steps forward with, kind of having an idea of where you wanted to go? I mean, what did that look like early on for you? And this is really for the listener who's kind of in the same place. They want to get to somewhere, but they're not sure exactly where it's at, maybe, or maybe they do. But what are the actions? How do you determine those actions to get from your $20 out of your garage to Bruce Springsteen?
I was a hot mess, even when I was in the middle of sort of pursuing my ultimate career. I had no direction whatsoever, but I was no longer stagnant. Before, I was just stagnant and mulling it over, and I would have these little fits and starts. I would read half of a book and I would do a couple lessons, and then I would, then 3 months would go by and nothing would happen. And so there were several cases of that. There were several times where I was just sort of all over the place. And then, I was like a shark. I just kept moving. I went from stagnant to moving. I said no to everything, and then I just started saying yes to everything. I was just active, but there was no plan. There was no goal. My dog's losing it back there.
That's our special guest coming on the show next. Tony's dog.
Yeah, eating biscuits back there. I don't know why. Hold on one second. Let me check on that. Hey, yep, the pool guy's here. This is the most exciting part of the podcast right here.
This is real. This is real life.
The pool guy. But no, I was just all over the place. But what was happening was I was just gathering information. I was just gathering intel. I was just having this experience. A lot of them meant something. A lot of them meant nothing. But what I was doing was, I was piecing the journey together with very low expectations and just being perfectly okay with the fact that some things made sense and some things didn't. I was just thrilled to be doing something as opposed to what I was doing before, which was just barely getting by. I was in the pure survival mode, work, whether I was a carpenter or a handyman or a go-go dancer, or I was building a piece of furniture for somebody, or down at the pier with my hat on the pier doing mime for 3 hours so that I could make enough money to eat Cheerios and yogurt breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the next couple of days. I mean, it was just that, and so
you were just moving forward.
Just moving forward, man. And then, I'd read the book, and then I'd go to the seminar, and then I'd, have this experience, and I have that experience. And so
you actually, you signed up and paid for and went to seminars.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of the little side jobs were for. Like, okay, this thing's $425 for the weekend. It's down by the airport. It's this LifeSpring thing, or this Temenos event, or, there were, or Est. I mean, there was all these different ways of sort of, gathering together in a room full of a bunch of strangers, and there's some guru up there who's got a formula that's going to help you improve your financial life, your relationships, help you focus on your career. And you like, one perfect example was, I'm at this, it was called Temenos at the time, and I would say that probably 75% of the stuff over the course of these 4 days at this event did not resonate with me at all. I just thought it was silly and it was stupid, and it didn't affect me. But there was 25% of the things that we did, these little lessons, filling out these forms or whatever. One of them was take the next half an hour and write your obituary if you died tomorrow. And at that point, I was broke, $60,000 in debt, crappy car, no relationship. Lived in a crappy little 2-bedroom apartment with a view of a convalescent home. There was nothing about my life at that moment.
But you still invested the money into this seminar.
Yeah, because I thought, well, I went to another event where somebody said, hey, have you heard about Temenos? And I went, what's Temenos? This is before there were no cell phones, there were no laptops, computers. It was, way back in the day. And so it was all word of mouth stuff. Like I had to look it up in the yellow pages, or I had to, I don't know how I found out about it, but it was a flyer on a wall at a food co-op, and I went, what the hell, why not? You know what I mean? And so this person who I like and appreciate said, go. And I went and I did that, and I started sobbing. Because I wrote something like, here lies the man who didn't achieve any of his goals, is $60,000 in debt, lives in a bad neighborhood next to a convalescent home, which was probably where he died. I mean, I just wrote this because that's my situation was horrific. It was horrific. And I wrote that down, and it was like a spike, in my heart. And I thought, oh man, what am I doing? And so that led to another book and another course and hanging out with different people and beginning to sort of let go of the people in my life that were just not going anywhere, not doing anything, not achieving their goals, just sort of all talk.
So you consciously created an environment where you could succeed with the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. Letting go of things that didn't work and starting to surround myself with people who are doing some significant things and going to different events where I felt like I was learning to be a better person. And I didn't get any of that in high school or college, so a lot of people look at personal development and they think, oh, wow, that's stupid. Right. It's like I could recommend a supplement that works really well for me, but if it seems expensive to you, you're going to say, oh, well, that's a rip off. All right. But then 30 years from now, because you've been eating garbage and you've got, Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's or cancer, what am I supposed to look at you and go, I told you so, And so people just say no inherently. After high school and college, it seems that we begin to look through a tube, We look through the tunnel that says, I'm just going to do the basic things that I know to this point in my life so I can get through day to day and maybe hopefully have a couple of beers while watching the game on the weekends. And I know most people want so much more than that. They just, and I did, it just depends on how hard you want to work to pursue it. And a lot of it comes down to, for me, get new people in my life, find them somehow. And I found them at these seminars and I found them at these retreats and I found them at the yoga event. And I just found them. They were cool and they were happy and they were doing things that were difficult for me. But I thought, I'll take the steps to see if I can get there. And also, making sure that the foundation was there, and that was the regular exercise to stimulate the chemicals in my brain to be able to have the energy and enthusiasm to go get this stuff. And ta-da!
So for the person listening who they have a decent job, life is okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. They don't have that crucible moment, that spike, like you said, that you had, that sort of rock bottom moment. And they're just kind of going like, well, if I don't get that amazing life, it's going to be okay. But they have that sort of deep nagging, like Henry David Thoreau said, the masses of men lead lives of quiet desperation. They're leading this life of quiet desperation, but that's all it is. I mean, how do they find that spike, that moment, that crucible experience that helps them start taking the action and break out of the mold of mediocrity that just surrounds us? Is it, and maybe it's sitting down and writing out that your eulogy, or any thoughts on that? Where do we go from there?
They have to ask for help, man. They have to open a door. They have to go take a class.
Might even have to pay for it, right?
They have to get uncomfortable. You know what I mean? They have to lower their expectations. They have to be okay with the fact that this choice to transform is going to take time. And as somebody who, I do podcasts all the time, and I always say to folks, both you and I, Jim, cannot help people who aren't looking for help. They can piss in, you know what I mean? So, but, and there are people that I'm sure, people that I know that are in my life, family members that just suffer, and I have answers for them. And early on in my career, I would say, hey man, let me show you this, let me show you that. They weren't ready.
Right.
They weren't ready. It wasn't, the stakes were not high enough.
I have people like that in my life too. Right.
And you can't do it. The worst kind of advice that you can give is the kind that's never been asked for in the first place, because your greatest intentions are received with resentment. Oops. You haven't enhanced the relationship. You've just made it worse by trying to do something nice.
Sure.
What? That doesn't feel right, but that's true. That's probably always true almost all of the time. And so if that's the case, you got to let those folks go, man. You know what I mean? You just do, or you just leave them alone. And all you can do is live by example. I mean, this is common sense stuff that we sometimes forget about. We're trying to stick a square peg in a round hole and it just don't fit, and so if it doesn't fit, then you got to quit, right? And you got to leave them alone.
It's interesting. I have a program, Reveal Your Path, that I take folks through. It's a 4-week sort of goal setting life design program. And recently I had a couple guys go through it. Their boss went through it, and he paid for 2 of his employees to go through it afterwards because he had such a great experience. And it was interesting. Those 2 guys who didn't pay for it, they didn't have to invest, and they weren't, like you said, they didn't ask the question. They didn't ask for help. He gave them help through me and through my program. They didn't get nearly as much out of it as every other individual dozens of others who have paid for it. and they just didn't get as much out of it because they weren't as invested. They didn't have skin in the game, first of all, and they didn't ask for the help. So that's a good point. You have to find the part inside of you that wants help and that is willing to ask. And as a former athlete myself, I grew up asking for, I was trained to ask for help, and when you're trying to be coached and trying to be coachable, you have to sort of put your guard down and say, hey, shoot some holes in me, tell me where I'm making mistakes and help me and guide me and being open. And you were that person from the very beginning, even when you were $60,000 in debt and, homeless and penniless and 20 pounds overweight, as Stuart Smalley says on Saturday Night Live. Google that if you don't know what I'm talking about for the listener. But if you're that person that is asking for help and you're at that low point, then great things are going to happen, and great things have happened for you because you were open to investing in you, investing in yourself. And you have your own personal development program now, Living Large. Is that right? Is that the one with Brendan Burchard?
Living Large with Brendan Burchard. Yes. Well, Living Large with Tony Horton, but with Brendan Burchard. It's based on my book, and I've written 3 books. I wrote Bring It. I wrote Crush It. I was going to do Annihilate It, but I thought that was too much. And so the big picture is really, the first 2 were, here's the basic push-ups and squats and lunges and food you need to eat if you want you just want to be more productive and happier and stronger and less vulnerable to illness and injuries. And the 3rd book, it was really sort of my journey, my struggles, the 11 things that I needed to do to get my act together. And so from the book, I met Brendan, and the guy is such a force. He's just an amazing individual. Tony Robbins, Arianna Huffington, Larry King, Usher went to him, to build their courses. So I was fortunate enough that he had done P90X and was a fan. He came to me. He says, I love your book. Let's take some great pieces from the book and be able to create a course. Because, people just don't read as many books as they used to. So everything's online. They can do it in their car. They can do it anywhere on their phone. And so, this is the future. And I thought, great. I really loved and respected the guy. And so we built this course. We shot it up in Portland. We put it out to the world last Tuesday, a week ago. And we're it's people are fired up and they're really enjoying it. And, they're getting a lot out of it. And it's really my journey as much as there's anything else. A lot of it's based on what you and I have been talking about here in this podcast. And so, it's about variety, intensity, consistency, your purpose, your plan, removing the people in your life that aren't helping you move forward and beginning to sort of really take charge. Cause at 58 years old, it happens fast. I don't know how old you are, Jim. I'm looking at this picture of you.
40.
You look like you're 27, man. You look gorgeous.
Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. But that's and so I'm just trying to help more people. You know what I mean? Because I see people suffer and they don't have to, and it's not that hard. It really isn't. It's incredibly simplistic. There's just some basic, like if you look at the 10 Commandments and the 12 steps, how many people have those helped? I thought, well, there's a number in the middle that's available. I think I'll borrow that. and originally it was Tony Horton's top 10. I used to do these public speaking events where I would say, here are the top 10 things that I do that have helped me that can help you. And so 10 became 11. We added one. And it was really more about rest and relaxation and downtime and meditation and yoga and the importance of letting the pendulum swing in the other direction. The juxtaposition between yin and yang, you know what I mean? How important that is in people's lives. Because you don't want to, you want to have this pursuit, you want to have this purpose, and you want to go after it, but you don't want it to be your nemesis as well. You don't want it to be your God. You got to have your downtime. You got to stay humble. You got to learn to relax. You got to learn to meditate. You got to have your bedroom all set up so that you got the perfect mattress and the right light. You don't have any electronics in there. And you got the bamboo sheets, and you go out and you put the hammock in the backyard, and learning how to chill, because that's all. It's all about recovery. Getting your 8.5 hours of sleep so your circadian cycle is spot on, so you're not getting up in the morning and craving fat, sugar, salt, and cereal and pancakes in the morning, and you want to get up and have some vegetables and some eggs and boom, and have the fuel to go about your day. And so that's what it's all about. And a lot of people go, wow, that doesn't seem that hard. And it's not. You just, stop doing the things that don't work, stop doing the new things that do. And I talk about faith, having faith in believing what I know and what I'm doing and that it works. And if you're skeptical at all, it's okay to be like that in the beginning, but at some point you got to jump in the pool, you know what I mean? And you got to start swimming. And I've sold $1 billion worth workout programs, not because I got lucky, because I have a pretty good sense of how to deliver this stuff to people so they'll be consistent and get results. And so the personal development thing with Brendan was sort of my next step. It's something I've always wanted to do, and it's the reason why we're having our conversation too. You know,
you've sold over $1 billion worth of these fitness products, and you've become incredibly successful. Were there, and like you said, you've figured out how to deliver these things well. Were there failures along the way? I mean, talk about a time or times when you failed, when most people might have just turned back and said, yeah, this probably isn't for me. I gave it a shot, but I'm going to pack it up and maybe try something different. Was there a moment like that in your life?
Well, you know, it really depends. I mean, failure is a funny word. It really describes that things didn't go the way you had anticipated them to go. You know, I mean, there's total failure. That's a different kind of failure than just making mistakes, you know, and then learning from the mistakes and getting better. You know, I look at failure as that there's different levels of it. You know what I mean? Where, you know, you tried to do something and you got badly hurt based on the fact that you weren't ready, you weren't training, you were whatever. And there's other failures that are like, oh, okay, that was a stumble. It was more of a stumble than it was an absolute total failure. And from that stumble, we can still continue to move forward through this process of building, you know, making this TV show or building this fitness program or learning from an event that you did that didn't go as well as you would have liked. I mean, maybe the response wasn't as high. So you just gather the intel and you say, well, you know what? I should have said this way, or I should have added more intel, or maybe there were more facts and figures that would have been I could have used here so that I could have disseminated that information in such a way that you would have gotten more ahas, from participants than I got, you know? And so, I mean, when like if you look at P90X, it didn't do anything. I mean, it technically failed the first time we put it out, right? We put the test group together. We got these great results that we thought the show was pretty impactful. But 90% of people who saw it didn't buy it. And so, but there was a very small demographic who loved it, submitted their before and after pictures, sent us actual video. And so we got rid of what we got, you know, we redeveloped the entire infomercial based on the feedback that we got from the small percentage of people that participated in it. And so when everybody else saw that the average guy, not fitness models, not ex-athletes, but the average person at home with their raw, you know, shaky video was getting results, they went, wow, that's me. And so then we got more and more of that, and then it exploded. But on my own, you know, now keep in mind, I've been working with this company Beachbody for 18 years. So, you know, the $1 billion, the huge success, you know, I see a small piece of that. You got media buys, you got, you know, people who are working over there, production and you know, grips and gaffers and lighters and cameramen and VPs and all that. You know, everybody gets a piece of that pie. So it's a team of us that have, you know, been able to pull this off. But once that worked, well, I thought, you know, and people started knocking on my door left and right, assuming that I was the CEO and president and creator and financed it and all that. And I wasn't. I was, you know, I'm the hired gun who develops it, who's in it, promotes it, and you know, is the face behind it. But, you know, so then I got a company who said, well, I want to do insoles with you. Oh, okay. I want to do this bar that has balls inside for balance. Oh, all right. I want to do a slackline thing. I want to do a home delivery food service called Tony Horton Kitchen. 22 different businesses that I started all failed.
Wow.
22. I mean, you know, 5 TV pilots, insoles, mouth guards. God, I wrote the list down about a month ago. I went, wow, you know, and and you got lawyers who are putting together contracts, and you got employees. I mean, you know, I could have bought another house with the money that I've spent on all that. And they could be considered failures, I guess, but it didn't deter me. I'm like, oh, all right.
Why not? For the listener who's sitting there going, man, 22 times, man, I just failed like 4 times and I've kind of packed it in. I mean, what? That can create a lot of self-doubt, 22 failures, you know? I mean, I look back at my wrestling career and, you know, the failures are the ones that really stick with you and really hurt and really cause the self-doubt. Why were you able to just keep on going?
Well, because I used to believe that was true, just like you. I used to believe that the failures were terrible. And now I don't believe that anymore. I believe that failures are lessons that allow you to learn something so that you can try something else. What if you just believed that? Then you're going to probably not stifle yourself moving forward. So with 22 failures, and some friends of mine said, hey, I've got this idea for this web series called The Boardroom, and the only way you're going to get to do it is you have to pay for it. The cameraman and the lighting and the location and the, food service and all that. And I looked at the numbers and I looked who was involved and I looked what it was going to cost me and I went, let's do it. And so I don't know. It's going up on Indiegogo this week. We're looking to try to raise $250,000 to create this web series. And, but there's a lot of really awesome perks. We'll fly you out, we'll put you in the show and, I'll sign posters and we'll do private workouts. And, I'm going to be a pretty busy guy fulfilling all the obligations to be able to raise the money. And who knows, we might barely raise 20. I have no idea. And
make sure you send me the link to that and I'll put that in the action plan. So for the listener, if you're interested in checking that out, jimharshawjr.com/action, unless Tony, you have a direct link to it.
We don't yet, but we will get that to you, Matt.
Okay.
You'll have to put that up. And then, then I was working with Patrick Dockery at Enjoy, and he makes these great hair and skincare line. And I destroyed my skin as a kid from Connecticut who went out to California and thought it'd be a really good idea to tan himself every other day. I was broke and bored, and I ruined my skin. I started using his stuff, and it really helped. And so I just called him up one day and I said, "You want to make a separate line for me?" And so that's called TH Care by Tony Horton, and it's starting to grow, and it's hanging in there. We've got about 100 people on auto ship and random purchases here and there, and it's brand new. But we just kind of added 3 more products to the line, and there's that, and then and then this course with Brendan Bouchard. It's just about, okay, I fell down. Am I going to get back up or am I going to stay down? Staying down doesn't feel very good. Getting back up at least allows me to pursue something that interests me. And the feeling that I have by doing nothing is just devastating. And I don't like that feeling. So I'm going to try again. And, this is why I read autobiographies, because you read somebody's story. Like, people look at me and they think, oh, he was the high school football hero. He dated all the hot girls. He's been fit his entire life. He was probably a rich kid. And, look how lucky he is. No, and no. I was the antithesis of all those things. But if you look at anybody who's super successful, they were probably nerds and beat up and not great students and never graduated college. And it's usually the biggest, the best, the brightest, the entrepreneurs that are super successful were usually had a great struggle. That's
struggle
the reason.
Part of the journey, right?
Part of the journey. It's the reason why they're successful now.
It's the reason.
So, if you look at yourself and you go, man, I'm a hot mess. Yay! You're in the perfect place.
Yeah, you're right on track.
Yeah, you're going to have a great story,
you're
right?
In good company.
So that's the company. Yeah.
And so, what are some habits? Let's wrap this thing up, Tony, with some concrete advice for the listener. So, they like to walk away with things they can take action on. What kind of habits do you have that you feel have set you apart and helped you achieve success? And maybe they're daily or weekly or monthly, whatever it is. What kind of habits do you have?
Well, the one thing I would do is I'd get a blank piece of paper and I'd get a pen and I'd make a line down the middle. And this comes from Keith Ellis's book, The Magic Lamp. I'm going to meet Keith. I talk about him all the time, but this is how I got my act together. Write down the things that you really want to pursue. If they could just be handed to you. Hi, Tony, you want a TV show? Here. Hey, Tony, you want to be an astronaut? Here. Hey, Tony Horton, you want to be a millionaire? Here. Just be bold, right? Write down 20. Like, what are 20 things that are cool? I want to own my own bike shop. I want to heli ski. I want to be a heli ski. Whatever. Be outrageous. There's got to be 20 things that make, if 20 seems too many, write down 10. It's not like there's any set rules here. And then on the other side of the line, write down 10 or 20 things that you find interesting, that you have the desire to bust your butt to try to achieve. And chances are the two will be even. You'll see a lot of the same things on either side of the line, right? And then start crossing them out, and you can do this 16 times if you want to. Like, okay, what's more important, number one or number two? Do I want to be a movie star or do I want to be a fitness owner? Yeah, I want to be a movie star. I'm going to cross out fitness owner. You go all the way down the list so you have two things that rise up on either list, and that's probably who you are. I mean, a great example is, and I'll be brief. You're a story about an accountant. He's great with numbers, always was. Had a decent job, had a family, loving wife. But he hated his job, but he was good and it paid the bills. But he loved mountain bikes and he loved road bikes. So he'd always go down to the local bike shop and just hang out. And the manager said, geez, dude, you know more than my employees. Why don't you work here on a Saturday or Sunday? Because you're great. And he thought, well, I'm already working Monday through Friday. I don't know if my wife will go for that. He went home and his wife was cool and said, yeah, you work on a Saturday or on a Sunday once in a while. 5 years later, he owned the place,
Yeah.
Because he just asked. I mean, sometimes you just an expression I love is ask for what you need. Ask for what you need. You go to a restaurant and there's nothing on that menu that no particular meal that sort of stands out because you're trying to be on a certain diet. You go to the waiter and go, hey man, I'm on the special diet and what can you do for me? Got vegetables back there? Can you put some grilled chicken inside? And if they want a tip, they'll do it for you 9 times out of 10. So I mean that's a simple basic action step that you can take now. And that usually requires simple things: scheduling a meeting, writing an email, having a phone call.
Yeah.
It's really that. That's the tip. That's the like last night I'm going through contract negotiations and I'm sort of, my head is all over the place. And I sat down and I wrote a 4-paragraph statement to an attorney based on how I feel about the situation and what I think needs to be done, and let's take our next action step. And he called me this morning and and we're moving forward, and you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And before you know it, you have a TV show. Before you know it, you have a podcast. Before you know it, you have more money in the bank. Before you know it, you have the love of your life in your life. Before you know it, you have a child. Before you know it, you know what I mean? You're not in debt anymore. I mean, it's just, Steve Wolf, Romancing the Shadow, phenomenal book. It's looking at who you are and who you pretend you are. Because who you pretend you are is what you represent to a lot of people who kind of don't really know you. But who you really are and who you pretend you are, who you pretend you are is your shadow person who's like this, everything's great, we're looking really good, I'm on top of it, which is probably not who you really are. And so he helps you merge these two things. And so you can kind of go, hey, you learn to be vulnerable, you learn to ask questions, you learn to sort of not worry about the stuff that you used to worry about anymore. And the process was huge for me. He would say, find somebody you love and trust, either your wife or a partner or a friend, and tell them, hey, I got this process and I want to do it. And will you do it with me? Will you help me facilitate some issues I'm dealing with? And you sit across from somebody. You can light a candle if you want, sit in lotus. I don't care. You can just sit there in your office and do it. And you to ask your friend if they're willing to receive this vulnerable thing that you're and if you got to have the right friend, right? And they have to know the process. That's, I did an 8-week course with this guy, so I did it right. And you establish what it is. I'm having some issues with my mother. It's driving me crazy. It's tearing me down. I don't sleep well. She's like this. I love her. She's my mother. But and then you ask, well, how does that make you feel? Give me some words to describe emotions. Sad, depressed, angry, frustrated. And then you take it to the next level. It's like, so how do those feelings make you feel on a deeper level? Right? And so you really get into it. And then you have 24, 48, 36 hours to take the first action step to get there. And you're not going to solve it. You're not going to, I wrote her an email. I picked up the phone. I told her how I really felt. It's not going to fix anything. And you do it again and again and again and again. I've been doing that for 30 years, man.
It's interesting. You talk about it all boils down to usually just boils down to one action, writing that email, picking up the phone. But you've got to do the work. In episode 68, the author of the book Essentialism, which is a New York Times bestseller and very popular book by author Greg McKeown, he talked about that. Just dedicate 5 minutes. So Tony just shared with us a concrete action item. Don't think you have to set aside a half a day to do this, and that's great if it goes there. But set aside 5 minutes. Just commit 5 minutes to doing this. And at the end of 5 minutes, if you feel like making it 10 or 15 or a half an hour, go for it. But commit to 5 minutes of doing this. And another episode I'll reference was episode 80 with Michael Bungay Stanier of Box of Crayons. And it's called The Coaching. He talks about his book called The Coaching Habit. It's about asking these questions. And Tony, that's what you're talking about. It's about identifying a challenge and then asking questions, or having someone who can help you ask the right questions to go deeper and deeper. And the deeper you go, the more you can figure out what the next action step is, because most people don't have clarity on that next step. And once you do the work to gain that clarity, then the path opens up to you. You know where to put your foot. You may not know where to put your feet 100 steps from now, but you know where step 2 is, and maybe even step 3 or 4 or 5. But you've got to do the work. You've got to commit the 5 minutes.
Another great thing you do too is re-engineer the steps. Say to yourself, you've been wanting to go to climb Kilimanjaro for 10 years, but you just haven't pulled it together. And so what you do is, you sit quietly. And this is why meditation is so fantastic too. And I talk about my 15-minute meditation process. I do an event at Omega Institute up in upstate New York in Rhinebeck. And we do it every year. People just really love it. It's a sort of a 3-step 15-minute process. And what it does, it just lets you kind of focus in on what it is, like really, because it's usually just sort of a mess inside of your head filled with emotions without any solutions. And so it's just about sometimes just sitting quietly and allowing and not judging the thoughts, and just sort of breaking it down and learning how to. And most people don't meditate. They just, in this country, yoga is now this newfangled thing for a lot of people. And the foundation for me, this is just my process. It's if you're eating right and you're exercising on a regular basis, and maybe you throw some meditation in there as well, then you're setting yourself up for success. Like, I've become good friends with John Rady, who wrote the book Spark. John's just this brilliant guy who understands the impact of physical activity on the brain. And then, you've got other people like Mark Sisson from the Daily Apple, and Brendan Brazier, who's, the creator of Vega. When I talk to these guys, one guy, John Rady, is kind of the physical man guy. He understands the importance of nutrition, but Mark and Brendan are really about the food thing, and it all comes down to brain chemistry. You could have you could go listen to all the podcasts in the world. You could hang out with all the gurus in the world. You could have all the information in the world. But I know a lot of people with PhDs with a 1-bedroom studio with a view of the train station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they don't have the one thing about brain chemistry when you look at it. I mean, John Rady works with kids with Down syndrome. He works with kids with, what am I thinking? Forget him. Autism. Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. Nice job. And he works with a lot of young kids coming back from the Middle East with PTSD. And when you feed people right with high nutrition food, low in sugar, high in fiber, right amount of protein, and you get them active sometimes 2 and 3 times a day, it's amazing. Like what's happening. Like one of my best friends, Steve, who lives on Long Island, his son had severe autism, went to this school in New York, and the kid was completely out of control on so many levels. And he's working with John Rady's people there, and now his vocabulary has tripled in a short period of time because he's eating vegetables and he's exercising all the time. And it has nothing to do with what he's learning. It just has a lot to do with the 2 behaviors that have changed the way his brain functions. And so you get the food right, you get the movement right, and you add a little meditation in there, and you're like this vessel that's able to accomplish more. And so, knowing a lot and not having those things in place doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be successful. But the likelihood of you being, because I've met tens of thousands of people in the last 20 years who said, I was a wreck at 16 Ways to Sunday. I didn't learn anything from anybody, but I started exercising and eating right, and all of a sudden I'm super happy and accomplished and make more money, and I just had the energy and enthusiasm to get after it.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And often the solutions are so fundamental and so simple, but you have to actually do them, and then you have to do them consistently over time. So great lessons, great advice, Tony. Thank you so much for making time to come on the show. Why don't you take a minute to promote yourself, your Living Large program, where we can find that, your books, etc.
Well, if you want to find me in any way, shape, or form, from my books to my course with Ben Bouchard or 22-minute hardcore at P90X, it's simple. You go to TonyHortonLife.com. And it's all there. I have a yoga, ski, snowboard retreat in February. I don't know if this will be out in time for that, but I'm always doing live events all around the world. I'm heading to a military base tomorrow. I've been to 50 military bases from Kosovo to South Korea. I do a lot of live events. I do a lot of public speaking. And if you want to know where I am, what I'm up to, what's important to me, TonyHortonLife.com will get you there. And if you're interested in the course I did with Brendan, that's Tony.growth.com. So pretty basic, pretty simple. So that's where I am.
Excellent. And for the listener, I'll have links to everything he just mentioned there, as well as all of Tony's social media. I'll have links to all those in the action plan. JimHarshawJr.com/action. Tony, thank you so much for making time to come on the show. This was excellent.
Jim, you rock, man. Thank you. Awesome. That was fun.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
excellent. Likewise. And for the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.